Welcome to the Two Chumps Football Podcast. That's Emil Calomino. I'm Chad Wilson. We're here with you. Week 11 college football, Week 10 NFL football, and it's on. We're getting into the nitty gritty. We're getting down to the end of that college football season. How fast that happened, and we're past the midway point now in the NFL, and the rubber is meeting the road. We're coming up on Thanksgiving weekend, so this is where they separate, like they say on Red Zone. This is the witching hour. For all you Red Zone fans out there, it's the witching hour where the fakers show that they're phony and the real ones show up this time of year. And we are all set, ready to talk about what happened and more or less what's coming in terms of our picks. We've got our picks coming each and every week. We know that's why half you degenerates are watching this show right now. You want to know who Emil is going to pick in the NFL, who Chad's going to pick in college football, and put yourself together the master parlay that's going to miss by a half point anyway, because you thought a 10-team parlay was a good thing to do. Anyway, that's what we've got coming up on the show today. We've got to go through this debate once again. Was it Belichick or was it Brady? Was it Belichick or was it Brady? We're going to talk about that here on the show today. Somebody, and you guys could figure out who that is, has a problem with the officiating in the Cowboys versus Eagles game that went down last week. We're going to talk about that. The Big Ten versus the Harbaugh. The saga continues, and it's one of the biggest sideshows going on in this college football season this year. We'll talk about that. And then somebody was crying after a football game, and it's been all over the internets. We'll talk about that, plus the big matchups coming up in college football. And, of course, again, our picks here on the Two Chumps Football Podcast. Emma, let's just jump right into this thing. You can tell me what has now rebirthed, other than the fact that the Patriots are sucking right now. What really has spearheaded this new debate as to whether it was Belichick or Brady?
Well, I don't know if it's a new debate. Charles Robinson is a well-known NFL writer that gets covered on Yahoo. Did an article basically, paraphrasing it the article goes to the point of the Patriots are showing you what they are now with Belichick and no Brady. Therefore, it must have been Brady. That's essentially the conclusion. And my take on this is I think it's an easy conclusion, but not necessarily the right one. I think he's going for an easy answer, like, oh, okay, well, the constant is Belichick. He's still there. Brady's not there. The Patriots stink. Therefore, Belichick was not the reason the Patriots are great. It was Brady. And I think that's trying to make a very complex topic kind of easy, and it's not, because, a relationship in life or in football with a coach and quarterback goes on a journey, right? It starts at the beginning and goes through different periods, and you get to the end. And then from the hill looking back, he's like, oh, well, see, it's obvious. Brady went to the Bucs and they won a Super Bowl. And I guess the analogy I'd say, you could pick a band or a duo, right? But that you like, but take the Beatles. If I take John Lennon out of the Beatles and I replace him with another great musician, I put Eric Clapton in there. They're not the Beatles anymore.
Right.
They may still have been pretty good. They might have even been great.
Sure.
But they wouldn't be the Beatles today.
Right.
I think what people want to do with this is, Tom Brady came into the league one way. Belichick took him, groomed him to a system. He got the job after the infamous punctured lung from Drew Bledsoe. The Patriots were a pretty good team at that point in time. They were starting to build something. Brady stepped in. Belichick worked with him in what he had coming out of Michigan, which was a sixth-round pick, who couldn't fully beat out Drew Henson and guys like that when he was at Michigan. And then went on that journey. And I think as the journey went along, at some point, Brady may have passed out Belichick, or probably did, and became the driving force of New England's excellence. But I think to say that would have happened without Belichick is foolish, in my opinion. I think it's very foolish, because if you look at Brady at the end of his career, just the way his body changed. He came out of Michigan. he was a mudslide. I'm not sure he had the arm strength he had even in the middle and end of his career. He got consistently better, unlike most people, because I think a lot of Brady changed over the course of that journey with Belichick. So I think people want to always separate the two, and I feel like they're inseparable. Another example, somebody I like, Roger Staubach. I don't think you can separate Staubach from Tom Landry. I think they're joined at the hip for history.
Uh, I we're going to attempt to make logical arguments for something that a debate that's entered into by fans who are notoriously not very logical. I agree with everything that you've said there. If people can really remember the early stages of the New England Patriots dynasty, of like, if you could just picture Ty Law getting a pick six running down the sidelines against the greatest show on turf, if you could imagine Antoine Smith getting a ton of carries and really being a huge part of the offense and why that offense was successful in that first Super Bowl and in the early stages of that dynasty, if you can hearken back to the fact that this almost didn't happen because Tom Brady fumbled when hit by Charles Woodson in the game, you recognize that while at the end it may look like it was more Brady than anything else, it really wasn't. If Tom Brady would have been drafted by the Detroit Lions and ascended to the starting position for the Detroit Lions, does anyone really feel like the Detroit Lions would have won 6 Super Bowls? You
Well,
cannot.
that's a perfect point. Again, you're talking about the journey, and Brady was given things that he obviously he used and he did well with it from Belichick,
There was a
and
great
then he
defense and a great running game, all commanded and demanded by Bill Belichick.
right.
And so if you don't start off with that, you don't have that early success. Maybe you don't beat the Rams. Maybe you don't even get to that Super Bowl if a call in a snowy game in New England in the playoffs doesn't go your way. And if you don't have that early success, maybe Tom Brady doesn't morph into what he ended up becoming in the middle of his career towards the end of his time in New England. So you really can't even look at it from that standpoint. I do remember this happening. The early stages of that dynasty was what I explained it to be. Really, really good defense, which never really changed over that time. We can all agree Bill Belichick is a defensive savant. We can give him that. He may be lacking some other things, but on defense, the man knows what he's doing probably more than anyone who's ever coached in this league. And after a couple of Super Bowls, I don't remember exactly where, but they started turning this thing into, it's about Brady and the offense. It started turning into 5 wide receivers. It started turning into throwing the ball around a little bit more. And if you remember, there was a little bit of a lull in there for a little period of time where there
was those years where they started getting, and by the way, just before you go further, because you're making a great point that I missed, even think about Ben Roethlisberger's rookie year when they beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. The Steelers were 16-1 coming into the game, and I think the Patriots were like 15-2. They beat them special teams, defense, not
gritty.
the stuff we saw at the end.
Yeah, gritty ball. And they started making it about Brady. Probably a good decision long term, but in the beginning, there were some issues there. Hell, the greatest team they could put together was the year with Randy Moss, and that didn't happen. So I don't like, yes, you have to give Tom Brady credit. I don't know who you give more credit to. I'm going to 100% agree with you and say, without Belichick, there's no Brady. Without Brady, there's no Belichick. There's peanut butter, there's jelly, there's this sandwich. And you
why do we feel this need? And you're saying fans. This was only brought up because it came across my computer screen the other day, and I'm thinking he's a good writer. I read a lot of his stuff, and I'm just like, why does everybody feel the need to try to separate the two after the fact? Like, again, oh, well, Brady won the Super Bowl in Tampa. See, they didn't need Belichick. Well, sure he did. At the point he won the Super Bowl in Tampa, he had 6 under his belt. he had 9 trips to the Super Bowl. He was a different guy.
Yeah, no, it's the same mentality that has people moving to near blows over LeBron versus Jordan. Those type of deals.
Right.
People, it's just unsettled. It's like, we need to close this thing out.
But it can't be settled.
It can't.
Again,
This is
your
a forever
example of
argument.
Jordan and LeBron. What I always say when I'm ranking players, I tell people the way I rank them isn't against the other player because they couldn't have played against each other, and the times are different, the games are different. I rank them against their peers and how much greater they were than the people they played at the time.
Right.
And that, to me, that's the way you do it. And you look at that delta, how much better was this guy than everybody else at the time? And that's how I rank them because to
That's the
say that
only way to do it. It's
it's
really
the
the
only way you can
only
do
way
it
to do it.
because the games evolve, the styles change, the training methods change. I mean, is it fair to try to say, well, Jim Thorpe couldn't play in the NFL today? Well, no, because he was alive 100 and some years ago. I mean, they didn't.
100 years from now, you might be able to say Randy Moss couldn't play in today's NFL.
Right.
So we have no idea the amount of changes that are occurring in sports in this era. Yeah, as wild as it may sound for me to say that about Randy Moss, man, things are changing a whole. If they're still playing football 70
Yes.
years from now,
Big if.
Emil, what do you think that's going to look like? We're at the combine watching defensive ends run 4.3, 4.4. What was it Micah Parsons ran? Like, it's
He
ridiculous.
ran ran either a low 4.4 or a high 4.3.
Come on. What are we talking? Deacon
Yeah.
Jones never came anywhere close to that, but he dominated his era. So this will rage on. There's no way to separate it. I think what's fueling it is just how bad New England is right now. I think we could say Bill Belichick right now is not the same coach that he was maybe 5-6 years ago. He may be entering into a stage.
His problem to me, and again, I'm not as plugged in. I'm like any other fan out there. I'm not plugged into the Patriots because I'm not a Patriot fan, but I follow the NFL. My big thing with Belichick is what's failing Bill Belichick is not Bill Belichick the coach, it's Bill Belichick the GM.
Probably,
Yeah.
there's a feeling throughout that organization, and even with the offshoots that go to these other teams, that think, "Oh, I don't need players like that. I don't need elite athletes. I can do this with my intellect." And one of the things that has been attributed to Josh McDaniels in a couple of quotes that I got today. Granted, it's not, we don't know this for sure, but it kind of jives. That back when he was in Denver and he cut Cutler, he said to the team, "Guys, don't worry about the quarterback situation. I can take a varsity quarterback and turn him into a Super Bowl champion," or something to that nature.
Doesn't work that way.
But that's just the mindset of, I don't need these elite players. I can do it no matter what. And that's stinking thinking. And now it's biting Belichick in the rear end. I will give Tom Brady major credit for this. Tom Brady bought into the Belichick way. And had he not bought into it, none of this would have happened. So we have to give him a tremendous amount of credit for that. Virtually every guy that I have ever spoken to about that has come through New England is that it's a different deal. It's very tough. It's not fun, except for the fact that at the end of the year, you are going to play in that Super Bowl or have a really good chance to, and that makes everything that's going on okay. Now that there's not that guy there to do that, it's difficult for guys to get on board with it. So there's resistance now, and once you have resistance in that whole turn wheel, it's a bad deal for them. So,
well, we're never going to settle this here, but I think most people are doing themselves a disservice trying to settle it because I think you're looking for something you're never going to find.
No, and I mean, look, this will probably pop up again, but leave it to the two of us here. It's peanut butter and jelly. You don't have that sandwich if you remove one of those elements, and that's just the way that it is. Moving along, Emil, I was extremely entertained by the game that involved your favorite NFL football team last week. Big time matchup, Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys. The roots go deep in terms of that matchup. And I'm just glad to see that has returned.
It was a great football game.
It
And I'll
was.
say that even as my team was on the losing end, my wife and I looked at each other at the end of the game, and I said, you know what? I'd hate to admit this to other fans, but even though they lost, that was a hell of a game.
It was a hell of a game. You didn't even want to get up and walk away from the screen and go to the bathroom or go catch a snack, whatever. You needed to have all that stuff right out there in front of you. However, Emil, you have some feelings about it, and you're not alone. So go ahead and hit me with them.
Couple things. I mean, first of all, you know me long enough. I'm generally someone I don't like to get too deep into officiating because I think it stinks. Umpires and officials tend to stink consistently, and the consistency is they blow the calls in an even way, and you can't separate them necessarily. Because take a baseball game, you can't say, well, he gave me 6 inches off the black in the ninth inning to get the last out if you forget about the one that went your way in the third inning with the bases loaded.
Sure.
You know where I'm going, okay? There's a couple plays in that game. Could have went either way. Football's a game of inches. Prescott's toes out of bounds on the 2-point conversion. Tight end is an inch away from the goal line. Eagles fumble 3 times back to themselves. Some days, that's just how the ball bounces. And if it's a close game like that, it's not going to go your way. So again, I'm not putting it on the officials, but what I will say is this. I watched the Eagles at home against the Dolphins. 31-17 game on a Sunday night, and the Eagles played well. I don't know if the Dolphins would have won, but what I do know is this. It's virtually statistically impossible in an NFL game, if I had you watch it on the All-22, to tell me one team had 10 accepted penalties, the other had 0. It's almost impossible. They should have 1 or 2, even if the one team's completely undisciplined, and this team is Don Shula's Dolphins of the 1980s and 70s. The Dolphins back then even made a penalty or 2. So
I
it's
just
unusual.
don't think you can block the Cowboys front consistently for an entire game without holding.
Here's what we'll get into that. There's a guy, a geek, more of a geek than me with numbers. He did this on the Cowboys. This is before the Eagles game. Cowboys lead the NFL. They're first or second in pressure rates. So while the average fan goes by sacks, don't do that, because if you're playing the Cowboys, the ball's got to come out in 2.29 seconds. And if you're an offensive coordinator, you're drilling that into your quarterback's head all week because you're telling him you're going to get killed. So they may not sack the quarterback as much as, say, the Kansas City Chiefs, who don't get that pressure rate. So the quarterback might hold it a little more. I don't understand how the Cowboys can have the top pressure rate in the NFL, but rarely draw holding calls. This guy did a regression analysis and said it's almost statistically impossible to have the pressure rate the Cowboys do with the lack of holding. And there was a call in that game, or a lack thereof, that you'll remember, where the Eagle offensive lineman didn't hold Micah Parsons once, not twice.
Micah in the middle of the play was crying
3 times. He even grabbed him like his girlfriend was running out the door.
Yes, and Emil, I will say this: it's a tough deal for the specific referees on the field that are in charge of that to watch what is going to be 5 to maybe 6 interactions at the line of scrimmage, if you include the back in protection, or if a tight end stays in, could be up to 7, and spot every holding call. However,
100%, I get it.
It's Micah Parsons. If I'm devoting any attention to any one of those 5 to 6 to 7 interactions, it's going to be on what's happening to 11 as he's rushing in the passer.
The poor son of a bitch had his arm up in the air. The guy was grabbing
his arm. Okay. For that, I'll agree with you. So we've established there was missed calls.
Okay. Then
what do you think's behind
it? Your favorite one. Okay. And again, we can do this in games. I get it. Some pass interference calls are debatable. I get it 100%. There's a call in that game.
I'm thinking at least 50%.
But there was a call in that game that led eventually to an Eagle touchdown where they called Gilmore. Now, this is a former NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He's got pedigree.
Yes.
He's one-on-one with A.J. Brown. The ball goes 7 yards out of bounds. So it's not like, first of all, even if he did impede him, the ball was uncatchable. It landed 7 yards out of bounds. Brown is literally pushing Gilmore Croft. Now Brown's a big guy.
Yeah, he's going to get physical. He's Michael Irvin now.
He's Michael Irvin
in terms of the way the routes get run.
So that play to me, when I saw the ball land incomplete, I figured, okay, it's a no call. I wasn't expecting offensive pass interference, but I certainly wasn't expecting anything defensive. That looked like two guys. Both guys had their head around looking for the ball. The ball lands 7 yards out of bounds. Here comes the flag. Let's continue that drive. That's when I texted you.
A crucial call in a crucial moment in a crucial.
Well, there was 2 more on that drive. I texted you about that point. If I go back to my thread, why don't the refs just take the ball, put it in the end zone, and signal a touchdown? Okay, and that's where the drive ended up. Okay, so
yeah, listen, for a guy who watches some of every game that happens every week, and a good amount of them to completion. Yes, we can do a whole show on pass interference. So we've established.
Okay, and my last call, and then I'll let it go. We'll go to the next subject. The Cowboys somehow, on a 4th down with 1:20 left in the game, they go for it. They had to go for it. They're down 5 because of Dak Prescott's toe being out of bounds, and it was, or they could have kicked the field goal. They miss it. You figure the game's over, but the defense steps up like it did most of the day, by the way. Gets a 3 and out. The Cowboys get the ball back. 46 seconds left in the game. No timeouts. 85 yards away. Bang. We get a legit pass interference on Bradbury. Wasn't looking for the ball. Puts it in midfield. CD Lamb. Next thing we know, Cowboys. 1st and goal on the 6, folks. If you didn't watch this, you should watch it. As you know, as a defensive coordinator, 1st and goal on the 6 with four downs in 28 seconds is a lot different than 1st and goal on the 11 for a couple of reasons. One, I can run the ball 1st and goal on the 6. Even if my guy gets stopped, I can get up, have a second play in place, or spike it because I've got 4 plays, no timeouts. They call an illegal procedure on the Cowboys left guard, Tyler Smith, that the only person who saw it was the referee. Nobody in the stands saw it. Nobody watching. Eagle fans didn't even see it, but said, thank you very much. We'll take it.
Right.
It changed the entire sequence of play calling.
No question.
From that.
No question.
And that's the end. Listen, the Eagles won the game. We'll see you again in Dallas in a few weeks.
No. Don't try to go there.
I mean, they won.
Now, I'm asking you this question, and as I'm asking you this question, I'm asking all the fans that agree with everything that you just said there. What would be, in your opinion, behind those calls, the missed calls, the calls that were ticky-tack, and it being on paper slanted towards Philadelphia? If I'm the NFL, if for you fans out there, and I don't know if this is where Emil's going to go, we're going to find out. For you fans out there that feel like there was some sort of conspiracy with this, why wouldn't the NFL not want the Dallas Cowboys in each and every Super Bowl and every postseason? Why would they choose the Eagles over the Cowboys?
Well, I'll start. We'll have the 2 Emils. Emil, the tinfoil hat guy, which is not Emil. So we're going to start there. The tinfoil hat in me says, because your son's played, the players aren't in on this, okay? So if there was a conspiracy, it would have to be the powers that be wanting what they want for TV. And in the case of this, you make a great example. If we're only talking about the Cowboys, well, sure. It's like saying, why wouldn't we want the Yankees or the Lakers in every championship? Got it. There's a side of me, and I don't believe this, but I could see where fans see it, that the NFL wants certain storylines throughout the year. And if you notice, they never end up with, and I don't believe this, but it is, I said this to you off air. The NFL never ends up with what baseball ended up with. Baseball ended up with a World Series that 2 cities watched, Dallas and Phoenix, and literally it was the least watched World Series ever, including the pandemic. Ever. Okay?
Really? The numbers have come out on that.
Oh yeah, it was terrible. They were,
so
and I could have told you
before you and I check out on this great life we're living, we're never going to get a Panthers versus Jaguars Super Bowl.
The tinfoil hat guy in me says, no, we are not. I mean, now you asked me now, but let's return to reality. Okay. Do I think the NFL purposely fixes the games for what they want? No. What do I think the genesis of this is? We have, number one, 60-year-old men in some cases trying to officiate the greatest athletes in the world.
With an extraordinary amount of rules.
I'm 55, you're 51. I'm in pretty good shape for my age, thank God. You're in better shape than me because you train athletes. I said this to somebody the other day. I see some of these guys. I couldn't run up and down the field with these guys. So you got a guy who was a lawyer up till Friday afternoon, gets in a plane, okay? Not every ref is Ed Hockley with this pumped up biceps. Some of these guys are like they're squinting, they have glasses on, and
His
they're
brother's
looking.
got some nice pipes there too. So
Okay, so that's the first
do you
thing. The
think they should
second thing,
all look like me? Is that what you're suggesting?
I honestly I wouldn't allow an official in the NFL over 55 years old.
Oh, there's a ban. Oh, there's a boycott, a ban, and a walkout, and everything else coming with that.
Well, I mean, it's not age discrimination. I just think that at a certain point, you can't keep up with these guys. We all know as we age, our eyes change. They do. I mean, that's a fact. Golfers can't putt as they get older. That's what leaves them because their hands and eyes start to weaken. Now, the other thing is we're all human. And I think home teams in general, the reason it's hard to win on the road, number one, is you're out of your comfort zone, you're traveling. And I do think calls are generally slightly tilted, not as much as I used in
Because
the example.
you don't want the backlash. You think that's what it's
They
about?
won't say that, but I mean, let's face it. I'm using an extreme example with the Eagles Dolphins game, but I bet you if you look at some of the closer calls and we could chart this, and I have no way to prove it, I still think the home team always gets the benefit of the doubt on a close call.
Would you say more so in Philadelphia, where safety could be an issue for an official?
Listen, all I can tell you is I'm not here to trash or piss off Eagle fans. The Eagles have a really good team.
It doesn't
I
take
don't know.
much. It doesn't take much.
No, it doesn't take much. I don't know if Dallas would have won the game or not. All I'm trying to say to you is the Eagles don't need any additional help. Let's
Mm.
put it that way. They have a good team. They don't need help. And I've noticed watching some of their games, not just against my team, over the last 4 or 5 weeks, it seems like when they're at home, they get some very nice calls.
Well, it's going to be certainly something for us to pay attention to moving forward. Now that we have these two grumbling fan bases, first being the Dolphins, now being the Cowboys, with some concrete on paper stuff in terms of the
Did
lopsided.
you think? No, you can listen. You know me. I'm not easily offended, and we're friends. You could tell me I'm nuts. I did. Were any of the calls I pointed out when you were watching the game?
No, yeah, but I could say that I didn't analyze it as intently as you because I don't have as much invested.
Sure.
But I watch all of these games and I see BS calls left and right in virtually every game. It just in this particular Sunday, it seemed to be more in this game and slanted towards Philadelphia than any other game.
I mean, one call. Thank God Dallas got the touchdown anyway. They scored a touchdown. They came up with some illegal procedure because they said the tackle that was on the end apparently didn't report as eligible. It's like, but he was lined up properly. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, what are we looking? Are we looking for reasons for them not to score? I mean,
yeah, given the kind of calls that you do miss, which are the blatant holding calls on Micah Parsons, the fact that you pick up something so minute, so distant from everything else that gets called in a game, would make one wonder, especially.
you go anyway. We beat that up enough. Let's move along. I mean, I'm sorry, fans.
Yes, it was Cowboys against the world.
Will you please tell our fans that I'm generally not crybaby?
No, you guys are going to have to watch every week and figure that out for yourself. You might be wrong about that. They're going to know in the next 3-4 episodes as they keep coming in. Speaking of us against the world, Jim Harbaugh's probably lived that kind of story his whole life. Captain Comeback has always been an underdog, even when he's damn good. Right now, his Michigan football team is damn good. It's so damn good, Emil, that I think we've got a legion of coaches in that conference that would like to see them blown off the Big Ten map right now. I think there are people behind the scenes at all of these other member institutions in the Big Ten that are pushing very hard for Michigan to go down and go down right now. So as we may or, our fans out there may or may not know, there is a process when it comes to NCAA violations and how the NCAA handles it. The process is they notify the member institution of a violation, and then the member institution has 90 days to respond. Today is November 8th. We can understand why that might be a problem for the other 13, is it 13? Big Ten schools right now, and in particular, the ones who might be vying for what it is Michigan seems to have a hold on right now. That's Ohio State, that's Penn State, and maybe another delusional school that thinks they're involved in all of that. And they are pushing the Big Ten because they don't have any such limitations when it comes to how fast they can act. They're pushing the Big Ten to do something about Michigan right now. You see it. You have the evidence right there. There's the kid.
But let's be clear. You know this from reading this. The Big Ten did not do their own investigation like the NCAA would. Not that we are hanging our hat much on NCAA investigations here.
Because we know how those Chumps
go. We're not real big fans of the NCAA, but at least they do an investigation. The Big Ten's basically taking hearsay and outside material, and they want them to just what they can do for anybody who doesn't know. No, they're not taking Michigan's wins back, but what they can do is suspend Harbaugh for a couple games and levy a fine. And I'm sitting here, and I know, like we're all odd as human beings. We all have our own quirks. And Jim Harbaugh is a quirky guy when I say
no question.
But he also grates people the wrong way. He's not exactly a lovable guy. He doesn't come across as like he's
doesn't
quirky,
even
but
pretend
he's
to be. Doesn't even pretend.
He's not the late Mike Leach. Mike Leach was lovable.
No, he's more Earl Bruce.
He's Earl Bruce. He's Woody Hayes.
Yeah, he's more that. Yeah, he's more that than anything else. He's more, Bear Bryant than anything else. And so, yes, he's probably rubbed some people the wrong way. Emil, this would be the Big Ten cutting off their nose to spite their face. If these other member schools that are pushing for this think that this is a good idea for their conference and that is going to somehow really, really help their school, they're mistaking themselves. There would be an asterisk put on anything that Penn State or Ohio State, let's say, for example, accomplishes if it's under the umbrella of Michigan being weakened by some kind of sanction that made them less than their best.
Well, a sanction would be taking their head coach away from them.
So you've weakened them. If you're Ryan
Day, in games against Penn State and Ohio State.
Sure. If you're Ryan Day, do you want that? Do you
want your win to be? No, I didn't beat you. Didn't beat Jim Harbaugh.
Of course.
You beat Chad. You beat Emil, whoever the coach is that day.
Yeah, I mean that's not what I want. But as I said last week, there's so much money tied to this game that you can suspend those type of thoughts in your quest to get to that big money and say, well, you know what? He was cheating, so let's get him out of the way. And if it so happens, if I'm Penn State or if I'm Ohio State, that we prosper from this and we win the Big Ten and we move into the college football championship and we progress through the college football championship to where we actually win it, who's gonna make a big deal about that? We got in there, we beat Georgia, we beat Texas, or we beat Florida State, or whoever.
That's the way. No, that what you just said is the way they're looking at it, and the way I think a lot of people look at it anymore is people just want what they want, and they probably
so low
feel
on integrity, man. Yes, there's an integrity issue with what may have been done here with Michigan on their end, but then there's an integrity issue of, hey, listen, I'm going to let the process that is in place. We're going to go through the process, but I want to get on the field against you at your strongest. I don't want your quarterback hurt, suspended, whatever. I don't want your head coach suspended or out of commission. I don't want any of that. I want your best 11 on the field when my best 11 are on the field. And if you're better than me, so be it. I'll go about trying to fix that in the offseason.
Well, I tell you this, this is, a microcosm. When we talk politics, I always say whenever one side does something to bend the rules, they're being short-sighted because the other side's going to do it and use the excuse of, well, that's the new norm. So when you're talking about integrity, same thing in sports. The minute you go here, somewhere down the line, somebody at Michigan is going to tuck this away.
Of course.
And when there's something at Ohio State or Penn State.
Of course. We've seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
That's what the gray hair in your head and mine will tell us. Okay, you got us. Okay, you guys better run a church program for the next decade, or I promise you, the moment I see it, I'm sprinting to the Big Ten office and to the NCAA, and I'm saying, hey, boom, 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 get a load of that right there. Take a look at
Yep.
what they're doing. So,
And
we don't want to
which by
open.
the way, I think we're all realists. We try to be here on the show that almost no Power Five team. I'll say almost none because I might hold out hope for like a Vanderbilt or somebody, but almost no Power Five team is running a church program.
Nobody is. Emil, this look. Let's just be real here. Trying to say that everyone is above board in the Power Five, and let's just say in the perennial top 25 teams. Let's just nail it down to that. If you think they are running a program by the book, then you have to believe that they're clean bodybuilding champions that never took steroids.
Let me end the segment before we go to the next one on this little joke, inside joke here. Okay, so I'm up in Penn State country, right? Now, my up here we have a huge contingent of Penn State and Notre Dame fans. I know there's a lot of Notre Dame fans everywhere. There's a lot in this area. It's a heavy Catholic
No,
area.
you're joking.
Right. But where you find more Catholics, you tend to find tons of Notre Dame fans. Boston, Northeastern Pennsylvania, Chicago, because they're close to the school. Okay, so anyway, uh, Penn State, like Notre Dame, their fan base would always be one of these. When they didn't win on Saturday, they'd remind you of how well their academics were and how they graduated under Paterno, which they did, like 96 or 97% of their players. Well, it came out this past year. They now have some of the worst. I think they had the lowest grades academically in the Big Ten.
Penn State,
The football team. Yes. So
specifically the football team.
yes. So one of my buddies said to me, what do you think happened here? I said they got better players.
I
It's
mean,
that
it's
simple.
it's sad but true, and I
I
will
said they
say,
got better players. What do you want me to tell you? That's what happened.
yeah, and I will say this to you, perhaps in a little bit, because I always come from the athlete standpoint. There's such a, and I'm sure you're on board with this. There's such a tremendous commitment now from a high school athlete to get to that point of getting that college football scholarship that it becomes extremely difficult for you to be strong academically. It's hard. There's not enough time in the day for you to do that. Some can balance it. Some just have the real intellectual gift to where they don't have to devote as much time as another person to grasp the concepts in their classes and still pass and so on and so forth. So yeah, to your point, they probably got guys who are a little more committed to football. And as such, you just run out of enough time to be as committed to academics as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the results.
I mean, I sound like I'm being a wise guy, but that was my honest answer to this person. I said, you just got better players.
I mean, look, as they say, it is what it is. Moving to the West Coast with the team that's in the Pac-12 that's soon to be in the Big Ten. And how many teams are going to be in that Big Ten next year?
About 18.
If you're new to this country, try to figure that one out. But anyway, USC, another loss, another game where the defense, they played with 11 guys, I think, but it sure seemed like they didn't. Anyway, another loss. And apparently this loss, for some particular reason, maybe you could shed some light on that, was extremely difficult for the quarterback of the USC Trojans, Caleb Williams, and he climbs up in the stands with his parents, and he has this moment where he's hugged up with his mom, and then he's into tears. I do want to give the mom, I don't want to give her the play of the week by putting the papers over his head and covering that, despite the fact that it's obvious what's happening underneath there. I had some thoughts on it on another podcast. I do Footballville podcast, and I said, this is probably not what I want to see the quarterback and leader of my team doing. Probably not. But I could have a little sympathy on the other side too and say, hey, listen, an emotional moment. It's not the championship game. It's not the Super Bowl, but essentially everything you came into the season wanting to accomplish from a team standpoint is now over. So there could be a finality type of thought there. And it brought
This one was easy for me. A couple things. First of all, before we even get there, can I mention that while I had a bad Saturday night, I had a pretty good Sunday because they finally got rid of the defensive coordinator. Because I
Emil,
never saw.
what was the kicking? What was the kicker? What was the moment? As I text you, I said, what was it? Was it the 399th or the 400th point? Why?
I mean, I'm watching the kid from Washington, who, by the way, if you watched him, you would have thought they found O.J. Simpson or Eric Dickerson. I think he's had like 200-yard games in his life. He ran for 256 yards. There were holes there that I would have gotten 6 yards. Okay.
Emil, do you feel like all of USC's opponents and the male cheerleaders for their opponents coming in realizing, golly, we got to do these push-ups this week?
This is good. I mean,
am I ready?
I'm veering off topic a little bit, but I have to say, I sent you the stat in 134 years of football. Up till 2018, USC had allowed 34 points in a game or more in a season. One time, 5 times or more in a season, one time. That was the 2018 season. They allowed 34 or more points 5 times in a game. They've done it now every year, 21, where the team stunk, 22 and 23. Every year for the last 3 years, they've allowed 34 or more points 5 times or more in a game during the season. This year, they've done it 6. I mean, it's astonishing.
Can you use that marker of 34 points anymore, though, going up against the 70s?
Okay, 80s? but the eye test, they're 124th in Division 1.
Hey, listen, the defense is miserable, my man.
Okay.
There's no question.
So and I have a point here. I'm going to go back to where I'm going with Williams. I think it's been very hard for him in a sense that he is a leader and he's a good kid and he lays it all out there. But when you know that you have to be perfect, he made 2 bad plays in that game, right? And essentially, that's it. They lost the game. He took a sack on a 3rd down that cost them a field goal and trying to make a play like he's been doing all year. So you can't say, why did he do that? The ball, he had the ball wasn't secure, got slapped away, fumble, Washington scores. Wouldn't have mattered. They would have scored anyway. We could have punted them into the parking lot in the Coliseum. They would have scored. But the point is, kid throws for 300 and some yards, counts for 5 touchdowns overall with running and throwing, scores 42 points against the number 5 team in the country and loses by double digits. I think the crying was the frustration because he's never called out anybody on that team. He's been a good soldier. He never said, the defense has to step it up. He never said we're averaging 40-some points a game. Hey, it ain't my fault. And I think there was a little bit of that. And I said this to a buddy of mine, where you were saying you didn't want him to cry. I said, look at it like this. You start a company. Let me do something that's everybody can kind of relate to. You start a company, you pour everything you have into it financially, but more importantly, your time and energy for 2, 3, 4 years. And it fails. Now, you might not cry in the hallway. You may not cry on your couch, but I'm telling you, when you put your pillow down one night and you put your head in the pillow and it dawns on you what you've put into it and how much energy you've expended, there's going to be a tear or two that trickles out of your eye.
Listen, I'm not going to disagree with him crying. It's emotional. If you care, you're going to feel the brunt and the weight of what's gone on, for most of the season and what the season has ended up being. What are your thoughts of the location of the cry? Do you feel any kind of way about that? Or is that just, it is what it is? That's,
I mean, what am I going to do? Roast a 21-year-old? I mean, come on. I mean,
the internet has had their fun with this. I had
more of a problem with the coach crying on the sidelines in front of, not because he's crying, because he's
doing. Well, hey, you bring up a good point. Butch Jones got roasted for crying on the sidelines in the midst of 113 to nothing. What was it? 175 to nothing, whatever the score was there.
Whatever, but here's the point. Butch Jones is a 45 or 50-year-old man leading young men, and he has the perspective of life that he should be able to at least contain himself. This kid is 21 years old. I mean, he just had that's a big he has a shorter lifespan, obviously, at this point than you or I. He has less experience to draw on. That was a very big deal to him. Now, as a 50-year-old, you might look and say, you lost a college football game. It's a big deal.
I
Move
think
on.
Butch Jones was calling on his time in Tennessee as he was getting railrodded. And that brought him to tears.
I understand why some people don't like the location, but I think that was listen, I don't even know. I'm trying to find this out. I don't know if you've heard anything. Is he playing Saturday? You would think as a USC fan.
I don't know. And for our bettors, our hardcore bettors out there, that's a game I would stay far away from. I don't know the motivation.
Well, I'm looking at the line. They posted a 15 on that game, and I got to tell you, if he's playing, that seems weird. That's why I won't pick the game.
Right. Yeah, I'd stay away.
I mean, listen, do I think Oregon could beat USC by 3-4 touchdowns? Sure. But 15 as an opening.
No, I don't. If they're motivated, it's hard to beat USC like that. Yes, the defense is going to suck. But if you score 60, USC will score 50-something. If you score 70, they'll score 60-something.
Which is what goes back to I'm wondering if there's not some inside information or speculation that they may ice him for the last 2 games of the season because there's
only
no
one
point.
way to solve this is I'll get Donnie 2 times on the phone, and his cousin Anthony, who works down at the casinos, would definitely have that.
Do you think Donnie would know? We'll get him on the phone.
He's got to know, man. And no one's going to lie to that guy. We know that for sure. All right, it's time to get into
Are we getting close to that time?
Oh, it's picks time. It's picks time.
Is it picks time?
Just me and you this week. I didn't call up the other 2 guys.
Are we going to recap? Since we start with college, you're probably not against me recapping college.
Hey, that pain's coming for me one way or another, so I could take it now or I could take it later. But yes, we do start with college.
I'll recap our college picks last week. Between the 2 of us, we were 3-3. So we've slowed down this past week. I was 1-2. Chad was 2-1. We both took losses on Notre Dame, and for you Fighting Irish fans out there, you guys
dudded. That was a dud. Come on.
That was a dud. I mean, the game ended up 8 points, but they were never really threatening.
No, Tyler from Spartanburg really fired up Dabo and the Clemson troops, and that guy got his name mentioned a good 10 times this weekend. So
he did.
Maybe he was. Maybe it was clever that he did that.
So that was your only loser, and then you had Texas Tech as a winner. That was a nice pick. You had Oregon as a winner. I think Cal fired everything they had at USC, and then Oregon, what was it, 63-19?
I like this time of year finding those, I call them spread watcher games, and that was a good one.
Yeah, it was a spread watcher. And I missed one of those, and you did too. The other spread watcher we should have been on was Penn State, coming off that terrible performance against Indiana with a Maryland team that they usually kill Maryland.
I feel you. I'm just so petrified of their offense that I just can't.
Me too. So anyway, you were 2-1. Your record on the year, and I mean this, I'm not just 22-8. I mean, you're hitting 70% or better of your college picks. You've been incredible. I was 1-2, loss on Notre Dame, another loss on Georgia. I really thought they'd bring it against Missouri, kind of feel a little threatened and go out and assert themselves, and they did far from that. They escaped with a 30-21 win, but I didn't come away overly impressed with the 2-time defending champs. And then finally, USC has been a gift to God for me as far as the point spreads. If you go back, people,
have
and
you missed the USC
tape,
pick this year?
I did miss one early, taking USC. I took Washington, and if you run last week's tape, I said they'll hang 50 on USC. Well,
we have a clip running around on the YouTube channel with your USC versus Washington pick, and you nailed that one, brother. For you guys out there watching it, go find that clip. He absolutely nailed that.
That was too easy. So that was my only win. I was 1-2. I'm at 17-13, which actually is pretty good, except I'm picking against a guy or with a guy who's 22-8. Add those together, we're 39-21 in college. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's
So let's do this. I'll start college. You do your college. Then you can do your, after I do the pro recap, you hit the pros. I'll end the show, and that'll be that.
no problem. Hit it. Let's go.
Okay. I'm going to start off in the Big Ten with the guy we just talked about, Michigan. I don't care who's on the sidelines for Michigan on Saturday. I think this whole fiasco is going to do nothing but inspire Michigan. And when they put this number at 4.5, I don't care if there's a white out, a green out. I don't care if they're playing at noon or 8 p.m. I've seen Penn State's offense. It's not the kind of offense that's going to be able to move the ball against Michigan's defense because Michigan has the players and the scheme. They will make Penn State beat them over the top. And I haven't seen Penn State do that yet. They're going to jump routes. They're going to stack the line of scrimmage. And until Penn State shows an ability to push the ball down the field, Michigan will stay in that just like Ohio State did. And even if Penn State's defense is stout and holds them to 24 points, again, I see Penn State struggling to break 10 in this game. So for me, this is an easy one. It may not be, oh, they win by 30 points, but to me, this is 24-10 Michigan all day. I'll give 4.5. Give me the Wolverines. Then I got another rivalry game here and a team I think people are going to run from. And I know it's a risky pick, and I feel it's only risky because of the quarterback, but I think Miami, the Hurricanes, not Ohio, I don't pick those games. I think Miami will play inspired football against Florida State. I feel Florida State's been a little vulnerable this year for being a number 4 team. They've played some very close games with poor opponents, whether it be Boston College on the road or even last week against Pitt. I mean, they struggle. It was 24-7. That was a game they should have dominated. I think Miami brings their pride here. If Van Dyke can just not lose the game, I think Miami plays enough defense that if they play a fundamentally solid game, use the kicking game, play gritty special teams, they're getting 14 points. I like 14 points in a rivalry game like this. They're still a 6-3 football team. Give me the Hurricanes. Finally, Washington beat USC last week, and I know it's tough when you follow up with Utah, but I like Washington in this game, giving 9.5. Because see, here's the thing. As Chad pointed out in the earlier segment, you can score 50 points against USC, but they're the type of team, they'll score 40-some. That's not Utah. And I know Utah is a lot better than USC defensively, but I don't know if they've seen an offense like this. They did, and Oregon handled them pretty well. I think Washington will go out. They'll score in the low 30s against Utah, and I don't think Utah is going to get into the mid 20s. So for me, Washington giving 9.5 is the pick here.
All right, recapping. Emil likes Michigan -4.5 over Penn State. Likes Miami in the Battle of Florida as a 14-point underdog against Florida State. And then finally in the Pac-12, he likes Washington to follow up that USC win with a substantial win over the Utah Utes. All right, here's what I'm going with in college football. Emil, I'm going to start off with where we definitely agree, and that's on the Michigan pick. Michigan's on a mission, all right? This is a very easy, like if they're not going to do anything about Jim Harbaugh right now, they're in a serious world of hurt because the motivational messages each Monday and the locker room speech right before they run out on the field is super easy for Jim Harbaugh. And he's making them feel it all week long. They don't want you to win. Look what happens. Look at what they're trying to take something away from us. Emil, the last few weeks, 41-13, 49-0, 52-7, 52-10. Even before all this stuff started circling around, they were kicking people in the head. And it seems to me like they've turned things up just a bit. So they're on a screw the Big Ten mission. Penn State just happens to be in the way. Oh, and by the way, Penn State might be one of the teams who's behind the scenes trying to do something to get Michigan and Jim Harbaugh out of the way. Whether they are or not, that's the message you can bet Jim Harbaugh is putting out there, and he's going to have the troops mighty giddy. I think the odds makers are trying to play a head game with us with only -4.5. You said it. Penn State can't move that football down the field. They're not really competent at the quarterback position right now. They aren't going to be able to line up in two tights and a fullback and run the ball down Michigan's throat, because nobody is doing that to a Jim Harbaugh coached football team. And at some point, they're going to fall pretty far behind in this game and not be able to get back in it. That's going to lead to more mistakes. And we probably have a blowout here on our hands. Nice try, odds makers, with that one. I'm going to go into the Pac-12. I have not had the opportunity to do this year, but I am going to do it now. I'm going to take the Colorado Buffaloes at this point in the season. And why would anyone go picking Colorado now? Just everyone has jumped off the floats. No one is on that bandwagon, but I'm seeing an opportunity here as they go and take on an Arizona team that's flying high right now. Kudos to my man right here, Emil, for alerting us to the fact that Arizona is not going to be the same team now that they've got this quarterback in there, and he has been correct. Mind you, Arizona is now ranked, like I said, flying high, doing great things, winning games. They just pulled off that nice, I guess we could say, upset over UCLA, kind of, sort of. I guess we could call it that. I don't remember the spread in that game. But these guys did that, and they've got Utah next week. And Utah beat the hell out of Arizona last year by damn near 4 touchdowns. If this is not a look ahead, I don't know what is. So you just beat UCLA. You've got your mind on Utah. You're not really thinking about Colorado, who string together a couple of losses here. One thing about Colorado, though, is, yeah, they may be lacking an offensive line and they're weak in some other areas. They are not lacking for what we could say grittiness, and they are going to fight you. So you may be up by 3 touchdowns with 30 seconds left in the game, and somehow the game's going to come down to a field goal. We've seen that time and again. So I've got faith that Colorado either stays within this number for the entirety of the game, has a chance to win it somehow, or finds a way to make it really, really close at the end. The back door is wide open on this. So I am going to jump on Colorado as a double-digit underdog in this game. Love them as solid underdogs in this one. Staying in the Pac-12, another great look-ahead situation. We've got Oregon State over what appeared to be a pretty emotional win over Colorado. They were very happy about what they did in that game against Colorado, used up a lot of energy in that one. And you know who they have next week? Oregon State has Washington. Oregon State has Washington next week. So that's a look-ahead situation for them. Off of a nice win, you've got a big-time team, a ranked team, one of the top teams in the country within your conference next week. This doesn't make for you to be totally on point mentally as a team, as Stanford comes to town, and the odds makers are saying you're 3 touchdowns better than them. The line is actually 20.5. Haven't seen Stanford in that game against Colorado. They have enough. They have enough to play a solid football game, hang in there, and give these guys everything that they want, So Oregon State tends to play games close to the vest, and that doesn't lend itself to them blowing out the Stanford team, especially with what they have at stake coming next week. Stanford got a win last week. When you're a losing team, that gives you a little bit of confidence going into the next week. So I like 20.5 points for Stanford here. So I'm going to take the Stanford.
So let me recap that. Chad likes the Michigan Wolverines, like as do I, -4.5. Colorado plus 10.5. By the way, I almost made that one of my own picks. I think they got Arizona a little bit out over their skis as a double-digit road favorite. And you like Stanford plus 20.5 against Oregon State. And by the way, Stanford quarterback,
do me right this weekend.
Stanford's been playing, the quarterback's been playing good football there. I like that pick.
Yeah. All right. So now we've got to fly over to the NFL. And again, for all of you first time on the show, all of our lines come from our sponsor, Bovada Sportsbook, the leading online sportsbook. It's not FanDuel. It's not DraftKings, friends. Bovada's been in the game for quite some time. Hit the link in the description, and you can head over to Bovada and see what everyone is talking about. All right, we're going to hit the NFL, Emil, since I've been
No, I got to give last week's recap.
Oh, do you have to? Go ahead.
I do. I have to. So last week, gave you our college record. Now, last week, Chad had a tough week. He took a collar.
For the second week in a row. I don't want to run from that.
No, I mean, you were extremely hot, and you are still in college. And the pros, you've been struggling the last couple of weeks. You had the Dolphins plus 1.5. They did their damnedest to make you turn the TV off, falling behind 21-0. They got back in that game. They just didn't have enough to make the full comeback. They lost by 7. You took the Texans -3. I don't know what to tell you what they did there. I mean, they were just
No,
not.
no, you've got to tell people how I lost that pick.
Was that the one
That's
with the
definitely the game where the kicker got injured and they kept having
yes?
to go for two. And then even when they got down to the end of the game, and by the way, we totally missed on talking about CJ Stroud. We're not going to have time to do that today. But in the midst of his 470 yards and the outstanding rookie performance, which becomes historical, he throws that touchdown at the end. They go up 39-37, and they're like, okay, listen, this has been a disaster, but they can kick an extra point and I can walk out of here with a tie. Not, I still have a chance at maybe not a losing weekend. No, kickers hurt, so we go for two. And of course, they don't get it. Going and getting the two would have given me a win. No dice. I lose.
Nope. Yep, and that was a tough loss. And then you also had one that surprised me, by the way, because I kind of liked Carolina in that spot, and they got drilled by the Colts as a
Yeah.
2.5 point favorite. So
See
you
that?
were 0-3. That drops your pro records. You're still above 500, 14-13. I was good in the pros last week. I was 2-1. I took the Ravens, which I feel is still the pick of the week. I used them in a survivor pool. I was the only
No, that was
guy.
a great pick.
People thought I was crazy. Like he's picking a 6-2 team against a 5-2 team. That was not a good spot for Seattle. Obviously, coming across the country, 1 o'clock game. Ravens did them pretty good. I took a loss on my Cowboys. I felt at worst I deserved a push there, but I was getting 3, so that's my loser. And then on Sunday night, excuse me, I had the Bengals giving 2.5. I got a little skittish on that during the day. I texted Chad and like, I'm worried about this Bengal pick,
Bengals are
but
playing really good football right now. Really good.
they are. And I given 2.5. They won. So 2-1. I'm 16-11. Combined, we're still 30-24. That's winning you money. So hit them.
Yes, sirree, Bob. All right, here's what I got. I'm going to get off the schneid this week, and I'm going to start with the team that everyone's taking a dump on, even though they're a 5-3 football team. I heard them described this week, or today actually, as the worst team in the league. They just happen to be 5-3, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, listen, if Mike Tomlin gets into the playoffs with this football team and the quarterback and OC that he has right now, you got to really consider that guy for one of those big-time coaching awards at the end of the year. Coming into town, though, this is more of a fade of the Green Bay Packers. They've just not been what I thought they were going to be early on this year. They do come in here off of a win, but they've not won back-to-back games this year. And they have one road win. It's over the Chicago Bears, and that's not hard to accomplish. Pittsburgh plays really good defense, and that's just going to be a problem for their basically rookie quarterback there in Green Bay, because that's what he looks like. This is his first time starting, and he's definitely playing the rookie quarterback role, even though he's not technically a rookie. Green Bay just can't get anything solid going. And that's from the run game to the pass game. They can't put together offense, and that's going to be a problem against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who once again play really, really good defense. Are they inconsistent offensively? That would be the understatement of all understatements, but they do enough on that side of the ball to get the kind of breathing room that they need and to eventually win out in these games. And I just think Green Bay is going to crap on themselves offensively, more so than anything else. Probably give some short fields to that Pittsburgh offense, allow them to kick some field goals, get in an end zone here or there. And I like Pittsburgh at home as a 3-point favorite against an ailing Green Bay team. Emil, if this doesn't work out, man, I'm going to put Tampa Bay on the list. I'm going to go with them here. They're coming into this game, Emil. Now, look, they're on a 4-game losing streak. I think they're better than that 4-game losing streak. They played horribly defensively last week, because I'm going to reiterate it again. Rookie quarterback CJ Stroud threw for 470 yards and 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. In the NFL, when you have games like that, there are significant changes that are made the following week, whether that is in personnel or it is in scheme or it's both. So Tennessee is going to walk into this game facing a lot of things that they didn't really see on film, because you've got to make changes if you're Tennessee. Tampa Bay, you've got to make some changes there. So I fully expect Tampa Bay to play a better game defensively. Baker Mayfield is what he is. He's not totally killing the team, but you can't ask him to win games. And in this week, at home against a Tennessee team that's not the greatest on the road, I think he's going to do enough to get this team what they need. Tennessee's yet to win a game on the road. Does Will Levis look good in these couple of starts? Sure, he does. You know what happens, though? People get a book on you, and it's going to be difficult. And it's going to be especially difficult for Will Levis as he goes into this game against a team that's probably going to change some looks defensively. So he might not look as good this week as he has the past 2 weeks. Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 1.5-point favorites. Finally, I'm going to slide to Monday night. The Buffalo Bills, this is their time of year, Emil. All right. Yes, I know they didn't come through for the Buffalo Bills fans. They didn't circle the wagons last week against a very good Cincinnati team, but it was a hearty effort, a game where they had some chances. And I think off of that, it's time for the Bills to start doing Bills things. Emil, over the last 3 seasons, the Bills are 19-5 over the second half of the season, the last 3 years. So apparently they know how to do this part of the year. We just crossed the midway point of the season. I think they're going to come on strong here. They're at home off of this loss. They've not had back-to-back losses this season. I don't see that happening here with the Denver Broncos coming to town. The Broncos are off of back-to-back wins. Who would have thought it? And they bye. Here's what the Broncos are coming in off of. Back-to-back wins, with the second win being over the Kansas City Chiefs, the gods of their division, and a bye week. Nothing says we're going to kick up our feet and relax like that scenario right there, and it's coming at a wrong time in the wrong place against the wrong team. The Bills are going to get into playoff mode, and the Broncos are probably not going to have their heads on straight enough. I don't normally lay points like this, but I love the Bills as 7.5-point favorites in this game.
So to recap, you got the Steelers -3. You're laying you're Mr. Chalky. The Steelers -3, the Buccaneers -1.5, the Bills -7.5.
3-0, baby.
Love the Bills pick.
Or next week is free.
Yeah, no, I love it. Should be free because the Bills. This is circle the wagon time. If you're Buffalo, you can't lose this game.
You can't even mess around in this game.
You can't mess around with it. Now, I'm going to give you my picks. First of all, I'm going to start on principle. I'm not taking the Cowboys game because I just saw the line with 16 points in an NFL game.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
But Emil, I'm look, before you jump in there, they very well should cover this handsomely.
They beat them 40-0 with their starting quarterback. I mean, but it is the NFL. And as I like to say,
any given Sunday,
everybody gets a check on Tuesday, so they're professional players.
Unless, and I hate to go off, unless you've seen some of the fines they've been handing out lately for total BS in the league, like $40,000 fines for nonsense.
Yeah, some guys aren't getting checks in that case.
Yeah. We'll leave that for another show.
I'm going to pick some big games this week. I'm big game hunting. So first, we have the 49ers. Now, the 49ers have had a really odd season, right? They start off, they win the first 5 games. Everybody hands them the Lombardi trophy after they blow out my Cowboys. And we talked about this last week on the show. I think the 49ers got a little full of themselves and probably put more value on that Cowboys game than they should have early in the year. So what transpires is 3 straight losses. Okay. Close game against the Browns, the Vikings. They get handled pretty good by the Bengals, and then they have a bye week. 49ers are a well-coached football team with a really good roster. Now, I know Jacksonville's playing good ball. Jacksonville's still a young team. They play in an awful division. So we'll see what that 6-2 record's all about this week. But they have a 49er team that should come in here very pissed off. Okay. Pissed off, well coached, 2 weeks to prepare. I expect the 49ers to come out with their hair on fire. Now, does that mean that I think they're going to beat Jacksonville by 3 touchdowns? No, Jacksonville's a capable team. But I think they easily cover the 3 points. And I think the odds makers are telling us something here. 6-2 Jacksonville team, ranked by all these guys who do these goofy power rankings every week to get an audience in the top 5 or 6 at home. And they're playing a team on a 3-game losing streak, and they're getting 3 points at home. Doesn't sound right. Give me the 49ers -3. Next, here's a game that I think has the potential that the team that gets the 13 can win the game. I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns, and I'm going to take the 6 points against the Ravens. And I know what I'm doing here. The Ravens are playing great football. Probably right now, the best football in the league the last couple of weeks are the Ravens. But the Browns have a very good defense. Okay. Just like the Ravens, these two teams know each other. So unless somebody goes out and kicks the ball around here, I don't expect a lot of points in this game. And when you don't expect a lot of points in an NFL game, 6 points is a treasure. And in this type of game, I think you'll see a lot of field goals, a lot of drives stalling out in the red zone, and that 6 points becomes more like 8 or 9 points if it's that type of game. So I'm going to take the Browns +6. I think they could potentially spring the upset, but at worst, I think they're within the number in a tight ball game. And then finally, this falls under the category of kind of like Arizona's Chad's pick taking Colorado in college. I think they're over their skis a little bit with the Detroit Lions. Do I think the Lions are a good football team? Yes, I do. But you're asking them to go on the road cross country, play a capable Chargers team as we saw on Monday night, and be a road favorite? I don't see it. The Chargers are a team that can disappoint you on any given week, but you're getting 3 points at home. They've got a good quarterback. They can get after the quarterback, as Zach Wilson will attest to after he was sacked 8 times on Monday night. And the Lions had a bye week. And you normally say, well, geez, they're coming off a bye week. A bye week with a young team sitting around being told they're one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the league. I'm not sure that's a formula I like here. So I'm going to grab the Chargers +3.
All right, recapping it. Emil likes the San Francisco 49ers to get off the schneid as they travel down south here to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. He likes the Cleveland Browns in this AFC North battle with the red-hot Baltimore Ravens. He likes Cleveland +6. And then finally, he's not a believer in the Lions going on the road, going out west, and going into LA and getting themselves, if not a dub, just they doesn't think they can cover 3 points on the road against the Los Angeles Chargers. All right, that's going to be it for us, folks. You came, you saw, we delivered. All right, we talked about what was going on last week. I really want to see how this saga with the Big Ten versus Harbaugh unfolds. I'm just dying to see how that thing goes. But
we're gonna know Saturday at noon if he's there with his hat on.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to see how that goes down. You did make a pick on the FSU Miami game. As you know, I never pick Miami games. I know what happened last year, so I'm hoping you're right on that. There is some questions surrounding the quarterback situation from Miami this week. I hope it all just results in, you know what? I did say this. I just want to see them play hard. Come what may, in terms of the results. That's how Florida State turned this thing around. They were playing hard, even in that last year where they had that losing record. I just want to see Miami do that, and they've done that all season long. So I'm looking forward to a good game there. But outside of that, folks, you've got the picks. He's Emil Calomino. I'm Chad Wilson, and you guys are the guests. Before you check out of here, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you're watching us here on YouTube, get and subscribe to the channel. A lot of great stuff here outside of just the Two Chumps Football Podcast. If you're listening to us on one of those podcast streaming devices, whether it is Anchor or it's Spotify or Amazon, any one of the multitude of streaming services that streams podcasts, whatever you choose, go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you liked what we've got going on here. And I hope that you did. That's one great way to show your appreciation for these two chumps right here, bringing you the news and the picks every week. So appreciate you guys doing that. That's it. We're time to check out. For Emil Calomino, I'm Chad Wilson. Thanks for listening and watching the Two Chumps Football Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.